For the first time at her company's gathering, I felt out of place when I entered the restaurant as my wife gave me an uninviting look. By her side stood a colleague from her department, approximately 10 years younger than her, seemingly unfazed by his subordinate status. Dana herself had extended the invitation that evening. A week earlier, she'd shared over dinner, "You'll meet the people I spend my whole week with." I found this appealing as our interactions at work were minimal. Now she seemed to be inviting me into her professional circle. Arriving slightly ahead of time, I located her in the crowd and extended a greeting. She looked at me as if I didn't belong, accompanied by a young man around 35 years old. He stood casually beside her, as if he owned the spot. Dana swiftly guided me over, almost hurriedly, and introduced me to Adam Price, my lead specialist. After our handshake, he kept eye contact for a moment longer than necessary before moving away. Throughout the night, she acted as though I was an inconvenience. Twice she departed with Adam to review the quarterly figures. I remained by the window, sipping a drink and ticking off the minutes. In the vehicle on our return journey, I mentioned the pleasant evening. She responded irritably about my parking at home. This was the first instance where I felt, that's not how a weary person behaves. That's how a person behaves when they have something to conceal. I am not one to create a scene. For 22 years, I believed our marriage was ordinary with its flaws but honest. So I chose to merely observe, refrain from shadowing her, yet pay a little more attention than usual. A few days later, a motive surfaced. Dana rushed out of the house in the morning and left a blue folder behind, containing documents for an important meeting. She phoned me from the car, agitated about it. I informed her I'd retrieve it. At her office, the receptionist stated Dana was in a meeting and requested I wait in a conference room with glass walls. I settled, positioned the file on my lap, and observed the corridor. Approximately 10 minutes elapsed, and that same Adam Price ambled past the glass window without noticing me. He was engrossed in a phone conversation, his gaze fixed on the floor, and I overheard him assure someone with a careless smirk, "If she approves my bonus, I'm almost holy." He continued walking, while I remained seated with the file. Shortly after, Dana emerged from the corner. Upon spotting me through the glass, she halted mid-hallway. She didn't approach me immediately. Instead, her first words upon entering were, "How long have you been there?" I passed her the folder, mentioned traffic as an excuse, and departed. However, the question, "How long have you been there?" lingered in my thoughts for the remainder of the day. A seemingly casual query, yet it left me unsettled. For several days, I did nothing. I reasoned that I was inventing things. Overworked job, lengthy hours, the burden she always brought home. A myriad of excuses. I truly wished to believe them, but on Saturday morning while brewing coffee, Dana was upstairs showering and her phone lay face up on the kitchen table. Without any intention, it buzzed once, illuminating its screen. A message appeared in full without any interaction from me. "Thank you for last night, boss," regarding the Hartley court, awaiting confirmation of the bonus. I stood there with the kettle in my hand, rereading those two lines. Last night, the Hartley court, boss. I didn't realize Dana had returned until she swiftly entered the kitchen, still wet hair, robe on, snatching her phone from my grasp. Her face turned pale, not with anger or offense, but fear, as if caught doing something wrong. She quickly stated it was a stupid joke, that everyone in her department often teased each other like that. Boss. Hotel. It was an office meme, she explained hurriedly and excessively. I nodded, remained silent, but in that instant, every detail fell into place as one clear image. At the party, I found myself asking, "How long have you been standing here?" It was that young man and his bonus, hinting at something unusual. I could no longer call it mere coincidence and felt compelled to investigate. The name, Hartley Court, resurfaced in my thoughts from that message. It lingered on its own, 2 words from a screen. In the ensuing week, these words surfaced during ordinary moments while driving at dinner at night. Thursday arrived, and Dana mentioned she would be late. End-of-month meeting, she said, perhaps until 9. She spoke calmly, routinely, even leaned in to kiss my cheek before leaving. Instead of staying home, I drove to the Hartley Court and parked across from the entrance, ensuring a clear view of the glass doors. I sat there, feeling like a fool, a 49-year-old man, waiting for his own wife outside the Hartley Court. I reached for the key several times, contemplating leaving, but remained seated. At 8:15, the doors opened. Out came Dana and Adam Price, with him draping his jacket over her shoulders as they walked. Such a gesture was unsuitable for a mere colleague. He placed a hand on her waist, and she rose onto her tiptoes to kiss him, not a hurried peck as when meeting someone new. Instead, I remained seated in the truck, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. All week, I'd attributed my tension to work, but there it was, them kissing at the hotel entrance. No longer any doubts. I restarted the truck and drove home before they did. Initially, I didn't rush home. Instead, I stayed in the parking lot for some time after they left. Quietly observing, not planning or rehearsing. My mind was blank and still, like it had been when a toothache finally subsided. I returned home before Dana. I feigned sleep and heard her move around the kitchen, brushing her teeth. I chose not to disturb her with a late-night inquisition. Such questioning is reserved for men who are yet to accept an answer they don't want to hear. I hadn't anticipated this. Following her departure in the morning, I pursued her to her workplace, ascending to her floor. All I desired was a private conversation. No spectators. The receptionist informed me that Dana was engaged in a morning meeting, prompting me to enter her office and wait. On her desk, atop a pile of documents, lay a transfer request for Adam Price, destined for the company's New York branch, complete with a promotion and a significantly increased salary. As I stood there scrutinizing that document, something within me balked at this tidy corporate decision. I grabbed a pen from her desk and scribbled boldly across the page. Transfer denied. Personal relationship between staff, the husband. I replaced the pen and departed the office. There was no reversing my actions now. That document wasn't solely hers to view anymore. I didn't exit the building. I ascended to the third floor, specifically the office cafeteria, a spacious, well-lit room furnished with vending machines and tables. I procured a cup of coffee from one of the machines and took a seat. I couldn't quite explain why. Perhaps I was still seeking some form of familiarity. At a neighboring table sat a man, slightly younger than myself, adorning a badge on a lanyard. The badge bore the emblem of Dana's company and a department name, coincidentally the same as mine. I shifted over, offering him a nod, and we began conversing effortlessly about mundane topics such as the weather and the quality of machine-made coffee. I mentioned that there might be a collaborative project in the works between our companies, and that I had heard positive reviews about one of their specialists, Adam Price. Casually, I dropped his name into the conversation. The man, named Travis, smiled and glanced around cautiously. Price? Oh, Price is destined for greatness. He has made swift progress. He sipped his coffee and murmured under his breath through the boss's office. The entire floor is aware. He doesn't attempt to conceal it. Last week at the bar after work, he was openly discussing it. Choose the appropriate individual to befriend. The relocation to New York is seen as an investment by him. He concludes the matter as such, and I left after finishing my coffee and thanking Travis. A single query persistently circled in my mind during this time. While it's a strategic move for him involving transfer and funds, what about her? What made her think she was benefiting from this? For the first instance, I felt a tinge of pity for her. Since Price had grasped the situation, yet it appeared that she hadn't. I returned to her floor and entered the office. Dana was already present. She recognized the deleted memo and comprehended its implications. Pale-faced, she held the same paper. Without allowing me to speak, she launched an assault, claiming that I was spying on her, that I was paranoid, that I was embarrassing her at work, that the hotel meeting was routine, and it was I who was causing chaos. After she finished her tirade, I remained composed, maintaining the demeanor I had from the third floor. Landing a New York transfer via the boss left her speechless. She paused mid-sentence, draining color from her face. For a brief moment, the office was silent. Then she questioned, hurriedly and suspiciously, "Who informed you of New York?" "That's untrue," I retorted. "What's false is the rumor," she inquired about the source. "It doesn't matter who," I responded. "What matters is that for quite some time, your entire floor has believed you've fallen for a man manipulating you. They think he's using you to secure bonuses and transfers, even bragging about it himself at the bar." She began defending office gossip, resentful coworkers, claiming I didn't grasp their workplace dynamics. Her voice trembled. I remained silent, offering no rebuttal. All I said was that I would temporarily be residing elsewhere, and left. The hallway denizens avoided eye contact, focusing intently on their screens instead. For 2 weeks after Gary's son left for college, he made minor adjustments in the house, clearing a shelf in the closet and adding an extra plate at the table. Dana and I barely conversed during this period. She initially sent angry texts accusing me of damaging her reputation due to my memo stunt, causing others to regard her suspiciously. After a while, her messages became more formal, discussing practical matters like utilities. She also mentioned that I had forgotten some paperwork, implying we were merely breaking up over a household matter. However, late one night, she sent a different message asking for a calm conversation in person rather than over the phone. I pondered over her request for a while, as Gary was asleep and the house was quiet. I asked myself what I hoped to gain from this conversation: an apology, an explanation that would restore my trust, or a version of events that made sense. I realized there was no such version, and that I didn't even want one. Each morning at my brother's house, I awoke free of the burden that had previously weighed heavily upon me, and this realization was all the confirmation I needed. Instead of driving to Dana, I ventured elsewhere, sought out a divorced attorney, and asked for the legal proceedings to commence. For the first time in 2 months, I embarked on an action not prompted by someone else's actions, but rather one initiated by my own decision. Approximately a month later, the lawyer contacted me to come and sign the settlement agreement, a conventional step as the documents were now complete. Dana arrived before me, signed wherever necessary, and departed, ensuring we wouldn't cross paths in the hallway. The lawyer then pushed the stack of papers towards me and demonstrated where I should affix my signature. As I turned page after page, all I saw were blank lines: the house, the truck, the account, the house again, and then, sandwiched between forms, a separate sheet. This was an employment record from her company. The lawyer explained they gather such records to document where people work and how much they earn. I might have overlooked it myself, but one line caught my attention. In Dana's position slot, our town was no longer listed. Instead, it read Director of Regional Operations, New York office, and a start date for next Monday. I stared at the date. In the parking lot in my truck, I checked Adam Price's phone page. His profile had been updated a few days ago with a new title at the same New York office. So this wasn't decided recently. It wasn't after my memo. The transfer had been planned for some time. Both transfers, hers and his, were to the same city. What I thought was Dana's mistake, a slip, a weakness, turned out to be a premeditated plan. A calculated one, meticulously planned for two. I'd been blind to the design for quite some time. I signed the last page and pushed the folder back across the desk. The lawyer confirmed that the house was mine, nothing left to dispute. I thanked him and rode the elevator down alone. Outside, it was a gloomy gray day with little variation in light from morning to night. I didn't head straight for the truck. Spent a moment on a park bench near the parking lot, as I no longer had anywhere else to rush to. For about 2 months, I've been pondering the same question, scrutinizing every conversation, late-night meeting, and her repeated "it's nothing," searching for an interpretation that made sense. Now I was giving up this search, as I'd finally understood the whole picture and found no more gaps to fill in. My phone vibrated with a message from Dana, first contact in 9 days. Hoping everything went well, reading it twice. Then I placed my phone face down on my knee and watched a man struggle to park a semi-trailer in a narrow spot across the lot. After 3 attempts, he managed. Standing up, I realized there was a fence waiting for me in the backyard at home, one that Dana and I had planned to repair during spring for 2 years. Today, I decided to clear the undergrowth behind it, marking the start of our long-delayed project. I left her message unread. I climbed into the vehicle and returned home leisurely, finding the silence in the cabin less oppressive than anticipated. Adam sought bonuses, promotions, swift advancement. His ambitions were clearly defined. Dana desired something different, a renewed sense of youthfulness and passion. In the end, they each obtained what they had aimed for. Their arrangement was predefined, with roles assigned in advance. The bonuses, the relocation to New York for 2. However, every contract has its vulnerabilities, where one party is needed not for their own sake, but for what they provide. Eventually, one of the partners recognizes they have given too much and received only an illusion.